Hello, dudes and dudettes. That's you. Welcome back. We're talking about PvP, which makes me so happy. I really love Protoss vs. Protoss, largely because the sound effects for zealots fighting is one of my favorite sound effects always. In Brood War, it was that lion noise, and now just the simple like it's like so swift and sexy, and I know so much damage is being dealt. And now there's two players who can make that noise. That's valuable. I'm glad I shared that. Looking at these games between Nightend and PandaTank, big shout out to Retrospecta, who sent me these replays, and to Mindsports South Africa. This was an event that was held in South Africa between PandaTank and Nightend. There was an event down there, and these were two of the players at it. That's a little more clear way to put it. And they provided me these games, so thank you so much. In this game, we're going to look at maximum equality. Oh, I didn't hit the play button. I was wondering what was wrong. I was like, man, this is lagging hard. So this is on Star Station. This is a big ol' map. Cross positions. Pain in the ass considerations. First of all, these assholes are purple and green. I could not choose two harder to see colors for the minimap, but thank God this has the yellow color in the background. I mean, if this were playing on a greener map, just think about it. We have a pretty common looking natural expansion. This area is so damn widespread open and out and gross and terrible, I hate it. This area, I mean, look, it takes up the whole screen. And then we have access to this third, which has another entrance here and another entrance here, in addition to this huge, giant, gaping pain-in-the-ass thing. And sure, we could come up to this neck to defend it, but then we have the entire right flank open. We have the entire south flank for this base with a watchtower. It just sucks, man. You need stuff. You need stuff to defend it. On a map like Cloud Kingdom, we can wall in our third, and our colossus can deal damage from afar. Who else sees rapper bros every time they see a colossus attack? Just, zapping over their range, zap them up. Oh, so good. Or perhaps with the hands in the other direction with a colossus with the suck it motion. All things that are very possible defensively on Cloud Kingdom, where you can wall yourself in. See how I pulled that right back around? Intense focus. Yeah, the third's very easy to defend. Occasionally air units. I think PvZ is the best matchup to look at to say, can I defend these cutely? Is there an easy way to defend this third without a shit ton of units? No! No is the answer you're looking for. So, big armies, big gateway-focused armies are a significant consideration. So I'm going to breeze through this early game because I want to get to the mid and late game, where we start to really ask ourselves these questions. If I need a huge army to defend, and a huge army to attack, what's the best way to get there? What are the considerations I will make? The players take slightly different routes, but per usual in PvP, everyone ends up with two robos going for Colossus production, and a little bit of extra change going for Zealot legs and Archons. We see out of Nightend a standard 2-gate triple stalker play. We see out of PandaTank a standard 2-gate triple stalker play. If you identify your opponent not being aggressive, you can very simply not build those next two stalkers and go straight for a Twilight Council, as both players are wont to do. PandaTank, though, backs up with those 3 stalkers. And, of course, Nightend backs on up with those 3 stalkers. And as we can see from this now beautifully green stalker from Nightend, it's done a lot of soul searching up here to the north. There's a pylon going down here, scouting around. We have these other 2 stalkers trying to monitor up here, cover all the various sides. It sees a probe and will, of course, abandon this assault to pull back. Both players DT rushing. LOL, OLOL. But a slight deviation. Blink, an instant follow-up. We can go blink and get Dark Templar. Thank you, Heart of the Swarm, for cheapening the cost of our most beloved unit. PandaTank's going to try to do this swing around a room. Mothership Core already out for PandaTank, who is in fact not opting to go for an extra gateway. He is opting to go for Expand and Robo Facility. I mean, Nightend is being just an unbelievably strong boss defending all this jazz. But both players kind of thinking up the same alleys. DTs to harass, Stalkers to boot, both getting up their robotics facilities to get some obs, expand a little bit later. I've done pretty much just qualitative descriptoring, and PandaTank, who I think is a pretty exceptional player, already has some of the preparations done. Some micro here at the front end. Do note that if, for any reason, one of these pylons wasn't killed off by Nightend, this push, in combination with the Stalkers, would likely just kill most players. But that's fine, we're not talking about killing players, we're talking about that long-term play. Blink to follow up. Okay, so immediately we will label Nightend as the aggressive player because he has Blink. We will label PandaTank as the defensive player because he has Robotech. Both players got to be a little bit careful defensively due to the fact that DTs are on the loose. But we don't have to be too careful. We can just sort of leave an OBS and some other units back home until we get a second OBS. Alright, so I've been describing a lot of the what is going on, so now I want to kind of step into the why zones and what the future goals are. Nightend's basic goals are going to be to shove back as hard as possible with Blink Stalkers and to gain enough control to get this third. Sure, PandaTank may have gotten his second earlier, but PandaTank has sacrificed all map control. And what we'll be seeing happen out of Nightend is he will round out this composition by adding on a second Robo and Colossus. Same logic as I'm going to push him back so I can get my third up. It's also I'm going to push him back, do damage, and hopefully get ahead in the Colossus count. I mean, there are these additional gateways here, but if you look at the overall production of Nightend, he's not going insane just building nothing but Stalkers. I mean, look right now. We haven't seen anything. We see full ability to make, oh, it looks like 3 Zealots. Soon enough, it'll be 6 Zealots. Still, nothing taken. Plenty of supply. Just sort of gently doing these sorts of things to help deal with DTs and apply some pressure up at the front. Now, to just note some weirdnesses that we were seeing out of PandaTank, PandaTank did not go straight for the Robo facility. He did not go straight for Colossus. He's actually going Immortal, Stalker with Blink. He is eventually going to get the Robo up, but he's even getting a Forge up. Why the hell is he doing this? This map is hugely open. We need units to be able to defend this thing. We don't have the value of cute positioning. This region, really vulnerable. If we position our Colossus here, a couple Zealots and Stalkers swing this way, and a couple Stalkers blink right up, we can lose our Colossus in a matter of seconds. Units are really needed, so we're seeing a lot of movement from PandaTank. And in fact, this is a defensive movement. He's moving down, and notice he's putting the Blink units in between his army and then the vulnerable cliff. We don't want anything blinking up there, so that's why we're cutting down and then in. So smart play from PandaTank. Pretty typical follow-up from Nightend to get a lot of Blink Stalkers and to try to win on the Blink front with gateways to deal with, Zealots to help deal with these sorts of Immortal pushes. This is also somewhat of a defensive push from PandaTank. Often you'll win, but this buys time for the Robo. So we see Nightend also never forgetting that benefit of having the early DTs. We can instantly begin getting Archons should we need to. But here comes that magical moment. Both players really want a third, but you know what? Colossus production. Derp-de-derp-de-der. De-dump-de-derp-de-doo. Nightend just controlling space, shutting down, and because PvP tends to be aggressive, everything that we say is true. Nightend using these Blink Stalkers to buy time to get a third. It just might take a while to happen, because there's a lot of attacking there. It doesn't change the fact that there's a still real simple thought process going on underneath. Buying time, picking off Zealots. Yeah, free hits. Blinking away. Blinking out of there. So this is the moment in PvP that I would say that a lot of players tend to begin hating. in this unit count, we see some archons, some colossus, pretty even stalkers, a lot more zealots for PandaTank, but they don't have charge yet, so they don't have a lot of value. So what the hell do we do now? I have heard so many people. I have a number of buddies who play StarCraft. Like, that's a fucking surprise. Guys, I have friends who play StarCraft, okay? I'm saying that because I'm worried I don't have a lot of credibility in this space. I need you to know that I have a friend who told me a thing, and he's my friend, because I have them who play StarCraft. So I have a number of buddies who still actively play, and they're all somewhere between like gold and masters, and all of them who play Protoss have said to me, well, I was playing a PvP and I got behind in the Colossus count, so I lost. Or I got behind in the Colossus count, so I was going to lose, but then he messed up and then I won. Like, these are the conversations that I have so many of. So what I want to do is I want to start stepping forward and noting the way that we're going to see PandaTank hold off an attack when he is way the far the hell behind. And we're going to start to see some really interesting tactics. First and foremost, PandaTank is able to use some... we missed it. There it is. Hallucinated Phoenix to just get a sense of what all these positioning things are. PandaTank being a damn genius with this positioning. Nice positioning on the pylon, continuing to scoot oot and a boot and der. I really think this is quite a clever play to get this early ground weapon, but I don't really want that to be the focus of this daily. So first, this sort of thing happens, and we're going to be looking at a lot of slow-mo battles. Just try to get a sense of what's up. A very important statement is that Stalkers kind of suck in big late-game armies. In PvP. Stalkers are like the roach of the Protoss vs. Protoss matchup. If you're maxed on Stalkers, you're going to have a terrible time, because you're going to be up against Colossus, Zealots, Immortals, Archons, all things that really rip apart Stalkers in straight-up engagements. Stalkers are good because of Blink. And yeah, they do some damage, but Blink and that mobility is the main reason. This is very much so a, oh god, I need some extra maneuverability to be able to take this out. So this overall engagement angle is bad. Time Warp, very useful now as a defensive tool to get into these sorts of positive engagements. Blink forward from PandaTank, very bad. Got himself into a rough position. And now the retreat right back through, the fact that we have this Stalker advantage, and that there's no Blink, certainly gave a nice little bit of an edge. So we see just generally very careful engagement positioning. Couple of Zealots being morphed in at the backside, but Nightend is actually still making Colossus. Nightend is up to 6, still getting some of these 7th ones out. PandaTank sacked a little bit of Colossus production to try to go for a little bit stronger of Gateway Warpins over here. And then this gross thing happens when the retreat begins. And this is somewhat even in this position. But honestly, PandaTank has too many units up here. It's going to be warping in more units here, has a lot of money in the bank, doesn't have the Colossus building. And these Zealots don't have charge. This I actually waited to mention because this is when I realized it, because PandaTank shouldn't have been falling that far behind in this battle. And then I was like, oh duh, he doesn't have freaking charge, man. I could have sworn that this went down earlier. That essentially negates all the value of all those extra Zealots, and PandaTank is forced to just do a full-out retreat. And it's 6 Colossus versus 4. So we can see a fairly bad engagement is about to come down for PandaTank. From Mr. Tank. I will note just, let's talk a little bit about some of those retreat tactics that end up happening. Certainly sentries to just like throw down there. It's not going to have a lot of value because Archons and Colossus just, you know, trundle right down. Stalkers, I think, are dangerous to blink forward, but generally blinking them to the side. Like if the army's here and you're trying to chase down, blinking in this general region. So that way you can always retreat the Stalkers this way away, and the rest of the units can still participate in that engagement. But these little cute pullbacks, and then the sacrifice of a couple of zealots can oftentimes be all that it really takes. All those units firing, but just enough time. And certainly little counterattacks are good. So the counterattack combined with a little bit of juking around maybe bought PandaTank some time, but still has this big problem. 7 Colossus versus 3 Colossus. What to do? What to do? So the big fortunate element that we're going to see is that on a map like this, we always have the benefit of huge, wide, ridiculously expansive engagement angles. So PandaTank right now has terrible positioning because all this stuff's clustered up. But yeah, there he starts to spread it out, and it starts to look real nice. In particular, in the center are the zealots. So I've control selected the zealots. You'll see that the bulk of them are closer to the middle of this army because they'll funnel through and spread out and absorb a lot of the shots. The Colossus are not really touching each other. And also, these Immortals are a little bit spread out, which I think is real key. And also having the Immortals at the side angles are really important. One of the big benefits that's kind of hard to see is imagine if there's an engagement that happens. We want our zealots to engage his zealots as opposed to his zealots running right up here or his zealots running right up here. The sides, like the points to our arc, we're worried about zealots coming in. So if we have our zealots in the middle, this means that if we pull the point up, our zealots can cut back in to block these units off. So in short, if we were threatened down here, we would go box, right-click here, and these zealots, which should be over in this area, then we can just right-click back. And of course, if he decides to engage us from the front, we also have that comfort of a straight-up engagement. Immortals to the side, I think pretty important because it means that we can begin cutting the Immortals to their points where their Colossus will normally be. But this is still a rough position for PandaTank. 5 Colossus versus 9 Colossus, and in fact, there's 7 of them, right, or excuse me, 8 of them right here, and the 9th one is pretty close. Yeah, and PandaTank has all his 5 here. So let's see how PandaTank defends this engagement. So again, we have worries about the points getting struck. Here's Nightend instantly trying to hit the point. Points are really good to hit with Stalkers too. Another reason why it's nice to have some Immortals at the points of our formation. So let's go through this slow. So we just see really calm, pull-backing, collapsing, and trying to get good hits off on these other pieces. A direct just 1A through the front does mean that we'll have that risk of losing some zealots, but due to this nice, due to the nice pre-positioning by PandaTank, anytime that any sort of retreat begins, which is very likely to happen if your opponent is Stalker heavy, his stuff is going to cluster up super hard. But PandaTank's still refusing to really engage. There's another assault at one of the points. And often the big value losses and gains come into what goes on at the points. If Nightend did a good job of this, he'd get a huge victory. But PandaTank is the one that does the good job of it. All the rest of the stuff is sort of like 1A go, and then we start checking out the up and down points. Remember those zealots that were sort of in the middle? Watch this pull from the Colossus. Pulls left and sort of downward to allow some of these zealots to participate. And meanwhile, because PandaTank won the Zealot War, has to pull back. Just 4 or so Immortals is enough to make a lot of Colossus run hard. Why is Nightend regrouping and re-engaging? Because he now has everything sort of joined together. On Nightend's side of things, obviously having Zealots at the front and Stalkers behind that are optimal, but leading with the Colossus to try to pick off these Zealots. Getting these sorts of free shots off. And as hard as this is, to sort of be constantly repulling back. The Zealots continue to gravitate towards the middle in case any of the top or bottom points get threatened. So PandaTank's been down by a lot of Colossus and about 20 food this entire time. And just does not get too greedy. Really careful splitting up. Immortal still at the points. Zealots still at the mid. That's kind of a far pullback. But then just kind of split, split, split. So I took a long time to talk about the formation that PandaTank kind of had set up initially. Because we're just seeing it reform again and again and again and again. There was a kind of a hard biff for a moment there. Like right here, this is pretty rough because 3 Immortals, 3 Colossus, all packed it in together. But, you know, one slice, and then that's sort of solved. So actually this unit tab opens, so you can actually see that the army size is a hell of a lot bigger for Nightend, and the army size is a hell of a lot smaller for PandaTank. And yet PandaTank's sort of holding in there. Not really doing too much counter-harassment with Zealots and whatnot, but pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to go back to the everyone camp and just resume in this position. I'm amazed at how much of an influence this time bomb has. Or is it time warp? I keep calling it time bomb. A single Dark Templar tried to go out there. That worked well. Alright, so cool. Now we're looking at some good formations. We got some Immortals at the point. If we control-click the Zealots, they are effectively at the center of the battle. These guys can sort of cliff walk up along here, but the battle's effectively going to be there, so great. And now we have 13 Colossus versus 7. I'm pretty strong of the opinion that past 10 Colossus, I don't think it has a lot of value. I think the Archons are a lot more important. And actually, I think that's one of the key things that allowed Nightend to get the edge. When this engagement finally does begin, see the Immortals at the point? Immortals at the point mean that the core army units, the gateway units, are getting sort of devoured as the Zealots and Colossus pick through them. And then these Immortals are free to begin charging up. There were no Zealots to get in their way. And just a huge win. Wasn't that cool? Wasn't that awesome? Just constant repositioning, not giving up any edge, not giving up any edge, and then the mistake. See, here's the real blunderous blunder that ends up going down. Zealots near the front, Immortals at the points to be able to cut in, and Stalkers, here they are. Here they are, they suck. Stalkers suck in the late game. Here they are, they're going to attempt to blink forward to pick off something, but they're just going to continue to get burned up. Here are all the Zealots of Nightend in a vulnerable position. These Immortals getting ready to move up to this side. The Colossus focusing on the gateway units. Colossus focusing on Colossus actually does not have, I don't think, as much value as these sorts of things. And then boom. And per usual, me hitting the back button has caused the volume to increase. So cool. What I'm going to be doing, yeah. Oh, actually, before we go to break, I want to touch on one point that the wonderful Maynard has brought up in chat. Saying Stalkers suck late game is kind of an overstatement. I want to qualify that. Stalkers suck in a lot of late game direct army engagements. They're not so useful in those sorts of circumstances. They certainly have a lot of utility. To be able to bounce around and hit things from other angles. You can get a lot of value if you can control them well, but they do not do as much damage as Immortals, Archons, Zealots, and Colossus in terms of just direct, like, DPS. Damn it, I didn't want to use the word DPS, but I did. Toe-to-toe, Zealots beat Stalkers. So in these sorts of engagements, we get a good look at why Stalkers are weak in those direct army engagements. So yeah. When we come back, we're going to see how PandaTank then sets himself up in a beautiful position, a gorgeous one that is conducive to boners. Stay tuned for the final segment, and then dinner for me. Man, I'm hungry.